Hey everyone, Dossy here from the official SuperCoach podcast and the Phantom's Lair. Going solo today for my very first team reveal of 2026. Perhaps the first SuperCoach team reveal of 2026 altogether today. We are on January 1st, 2026. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope you had a great New Year and are sticking to those New Year's resolutions. Surely not too hard on day one, but if you are listening to this midway through January, hopefully they're still going strong. Would love to know what your New Year's resolution is. If you do have one, leave that in the comments. Mine's pretty basic, trying to work on a bit of the running, maybe reduce those splits a little bit, but in terms of SuperCoach, my New Year's resolution, save trades. Save trades, everyone. Remember this in April, in May, in June. I need to save a few trades because later in the season, back half of the season, I'm always running out. And I always seem to run out towards the end of the year. My ranking plummets. So note to myself, my SuperCoach New Year's resolution is to save those trades at some points in the season. Use them when you need to, but save them at some points. Now let's get on to the team reveal. This is my first SuperCoach 2026 team reveal. I did leave I think it was a day one over on my Instagram, Dossy SC, if you want to check that out, the very first day. But this is the real thing. I've had some time to digest what I want to do in my team. This is a very early edition, obviously. Rookies are subject to change, as they always are. We need to see a lot more information on our rookies, a lot more information on all of these players. But I really like this team, so I'm excited to share with you how we're going to do this. I'm going to build it just from defense through to midfield, so I'm going to do it as we go. Just a note to anyone that doesn't know, you can only create your team in SuperCoach Team Picker at the moment. Now, the game will open up to everyone later in January, but right now it is exclusive to SuperCoach Plus subscribers. But if you're listening to SuperCoach content at this time of year, you must be a serious SuperCoach, and every serious SuperCoach pretty much needs SuperCoach Plus. If you want to see the break-evens, if you want to see some projected scores, if you want to do your buy round planning, all that stuff, that comes with SuperCoach Plus. The break-evens are an absolute must-have. So it's $29.95 for the entire year. If you want to jump in, get a month head start on the rest of the competition, now is your chance. Lastly, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, I do highly recommend for this particular episode, jump over onto Code Sports YouTube channel. As I said, I'm going to be building the team. There's going to be visual elements to this as we go. So with that in mind, I will try and accommodate if you do like to listen. I personally like a little bit of listening myself when I'm listening to my pods, but highly recommend Code Sports YouTube channel for those listening at home. Now let's get stuck into this team. SuperCoach 2026, let's go. I'm going with Nazai Wanganeen-Miller. I think there are arguments to not starting with him. He does have a bye in round 4, but we can see how his opening round score goes against the Magpies and make a final call. But they have Melbourne, who, didn't get the 3 votes, but did in our SuperCoach Hearts, GWS and Brisbane. So he'll get a price change in there, which, he could drop in price and we could maybe pounce afterwards. But I want him as a keeper. I think he's the clear number one defender. I know he is available here as the number one guy, and I think he'll retain that status in 2026. He's going to be moving into the midfield. He's going to be awesome. We don't need to speak more about it, but I am an advocate of starting with him, although I don't have a heap of guys starting on the early buy with those early buy rounds. I might quickly touch on it at the end as well, but yeah, Nazai, just lock him in. Same with Connor Rozee, and he's a guy who I will talk about a little bit more, just Port players in general. I'll touch on this a little bit later, but their first 4 games are insane. So I want Connor Rozee in my team. I think he's another guy that, regardless of position, same as Naz really, if he plays defense, if he plays midfield, he's still going to go likely 100 plus and hopefully into the 110 sort of area. At minimum, 2 really solid premiums to start the defense. Now's when I get a little bit sort of going into that mid-price bracket, and a guy that started pretty slow last year, but moved back into his preferred role in half-back, and we saw Colby McKercher at North Melbourne have a really strong second half of the season. He was in a lot of our teams, and he's priced at what his average was last year at 83. I think he's well underpriced for what he can produce. And heading into his third year now, I think Colby is in for a big breakout. So I think he'll be the number one guy off halfback, get heaps of handball receives, and be a huge addition to my SuperCoach team as well. And funnily enough, this guy's right underneath. My next player is right underneath Colby, so priced also at around 83, which is what he averaged last year. Also a guy that some of us went as a point of difference late last year as well, or middle of last year, Miles Bergman for Port Adelaide. So I've already got 2 Port players. There's a couple more to come, I'm afraid, as well. But Miles Bergman, there's already news. Josh Carr, the new Port Adelaide coach, has sort of flagged him as a more midfield time candidate. Now, we do love our more midfield time calls early in the preseason. They don't always come to fruition, but in this case, I think it's going to come true, because last season, when this guy averaged over 50% centre bounces, he averaged 108 SuperCoach points across 6 games. So it's a smallish sample size, but I've really loved Miles Bergman the moment I saw him at Port Adelaide. Went down to a training a few years ago. This is complete nuffy areas, but remember seeing the way he was going about it back then. And I thought he was going to become sort of an amazing player a little bit earlier than has come to fruition so far. But I think this could be the year that Miles Bergman really does elevate himself into a possible star of the competition. He's got that sort of pedigree. So Miles Bergman is in my defensive line at the moment. Another guy I like in that spot as well, I'm dropping Zeke Euland in the team for now, but another guy I like in that mid-price bracket is Trent Rivers. But I think Miles Bergman has a bit more data, even if it's small sample size, than Trent Rivers does. I love Trent Rivers as an option if he does move into the midfield as well for Melbourne. That's a watch and see. But for now, those are my 4 kind of premiums and mid-prices. Now we're moving into the rookies. Now, Zeke Euland, high draft pick, could have possibly gone number 1 if he wasn't tied to an academy. But Zeke Euland, unreal talent, and I'll be jumping on board him. Now, I'm going to go another Gold Coast son as well in Dylan Patterson, a guy that dropped a 90 and 120 in his last 2 games in the VFL last season. Another academy pick for the Suns, and you can see why a few vets left the Suns last year, because these guys are coming through, and by all accounts they could get a game almost immediately. So those 2 guys are on field, and the other reason they're on field, the Suns' beginning schedule, their first 3 games, it's Richmond and West Coast that are the 2 that are going to be counting for SuperCoach. So they have opening round. We can obviously assess how they go on opening round. But then their first 2 games that are counting for SuperCoach are going to be Richmond and West Coast, which is just ludicrous. So jump on board. If these rookies are going to have a chance to score, it's against those teams. Obviously, teams change over time, but I think those 2 teams are going to be pretty safe to still score pretty well against in 2026. On the bench, just going for some standard players that have been spruiked early this preseason. Josh Lindsay, a guy in the Rookie Bible, which is out now, codesports.com.au. Jump on board there. I'll leave a link in the description for the Rookie Bible as well. And Jai Sarong, who is a mature age player going across, obviously brother of Caleb, but going across to Sydney, completely different player, key position, gonna hopefully slot in at Sydney as well, and had high 90 averages in the VFL last season. So I'm going to jump into the midfield now, but that is the defensive line. We've got Naz, Rosie, McKercher, Miles Bergman, Zeke Euland and Dylan Patterson, Josh Lindsay, and Jai Sarong. Get into my midfield, and I'm starting off, so we're skipping past the Bont, but we're going to the number 2 guy here in Zach Butters, 121 average last year, contract year. Now, this might not mean anything to some people. I love the contract year. This guy's going to get a huge contract at the end of it, and regardless, you just want to perform your best anyway. But if there's a bit of incentive at the end of the tunnel here, and Zach Butters, contract year plus. Now, I said I'd mention it again. Port's schedule to start the season is North Melbourne, Essendon, West Coast, and Richmond. I mean, my goodness, that's handed on a silver platter for a month of SuperCoach greatness. He's a VC or C option every single week. So Zach Butters for me, given the fact that some of the other high options, such as a Marcus Bontempelli, have the early buy. Zach Butters does not, and he's got a month to start the season where he could be averaging easily what he's priced at 120. He could go 130, 140 in the first month of the season. So jumping on board that. I am going at sort of more discounted prices from here. So I'm jumping over a lot of these 130s and 120s and 115s of last year. And I'm going right down to a guy who only averaged, and only I say, just because I rate him that highly, is Caleb Sarong. Averaged 105.7 last season. I think he can go a lot better than that. Just in general on his score build, contested beasts generally dominate SuperCoach. He was number 2 in the league in contested possessions in 2025. Now, I was just looking at some of the stats. Did I cherry pick bits that helped my argument? Yes. But everyone in the top 6 in contested possessions, the top 6 players, averaged 110 plus SuperCoach points. So Sarong was the only outlier there, and he was number 2 overall. So I think room to grow there. Still suffers a bit from can't handle the tag as much, but he's still only 24, I think, Caleb Sarong. So I think he'll learn to deal with that. And I was looking back at some numbers from other players who struggled early in their careers with tags, like a Zach Merritt, and it took him several seasons to get sort of past that 105, 107 mark and really elevate into the 115s. I think that's where Sarong eventually settles. Plus, I think Freo will be pretty good this year. Jack Steele comes in as my third midfielder. Another guy I think is value, and I do like to look for value where I can as just a strategy in SuperCoach. We don't want to pay up too much for those 120 plus guys when we can hopefully pick them up a little bit cheaper later, but you do need your captain options as well. But Jack Steele priced at 94, that is his lowest SuperCoach numbers in almost 10 years. 2017 was the last time he scored that low. He had a sub-affected score last year as well. He scored a 30 odd. That was a weird sort of management situation that they decided to go for. Obviously, he's now left St Kilda over at Melbourne. Sounds like he's going to be a pure mid. I'm still very interested to see how he actually fits in there, what the coach there is looking for in his midfield, and whether or not we see some new fresh faces. How much does Harvey Langford go in there? How much does a Caleb Windsor go in there? Does Jack Viney still play alongside Jack Steele? Because that seems pretty slow to me. Let's see how it plays out. But at the moment, Jack Steele, possible value. He's been a SuperCoach stud in the past, and even if he can just get out to a hot start and get us up to a Bont or something, that would be an amazing result. So Jack Steele in for now. Haydn Young, and I'm calling this guy one of Dossy's locks. So I've got a few Dossy's locks in here. He's my first one. He's my first Dossy's lock. If this guy is right in pre-season, just absolutely lock him away. 389,000 for Haydn Young is incredible. Now, I butchered a stat on our last podcast, but I'm going to make it right because this needs to be a quote card on the socials. And I stuffed it up last time. I didn't look at the data quite correctly. This is the data. Haydn Young scored more SuperCoach points per minute than Zach Butters last season, and the same as Tristan Sherry. That is just crazy numbers. This is the top 6, courtesy of DFS Australia. Now, it does include finals, and for some reason the data didn't include rucks, so I've added in a few of the top rucks in there as well. These are the top points per minute in SuperCoach. Bontempelli, of course, number 1. 1.26 points per minute. We got Brodie Grundy at 2 with 1.25. Then it drops down. Max Gawn, just one of the SuperCoach GOATs. He's at 1.17. Next up, Tristan Sherry and Haydn Young at 1.16. And then Butters at 1.15. So just to show you those numbers, it's Haydn Young did not play much time on ground, and it's just how it works as well. He had some big burst scores. He's not a super high time on ground player historically either, Haydn Young, but it's also not an outlier. He did the same the year before. He was close to that number the year before as well when he did play bigger minutes. So Haydn Young, if he is out on the park, $389,000. This guy, lock in 100 plus from him, and he's priced ridiculously cheap for what he can offer. So lock him in. I'm going another cheap player in the next slot. We're not getting to rookies just yet. And this is a guy that I think will probably ultimately be a popular pick if he's fit. If he's fit, same as Haydn Young, if he's fit, this guy will be in a stack of teams. And he's from Essendon. I'm talking about Dossy Parish. Let's pop him in the squad now. I'm trying to find where his average is even in here. He's that dirt cheap. You got to scroll so far down. He's $334,000. Now, I think we were talking about him the other day on one of the pods, and I wasn't that interested. But when you look at his history, 108 or more in each of his seasons from 2021 to 2023, and a career high of 117. Now, I do admit the game has changed a fair bit since then. A lot quicker, less sort of slow, contested guys that do get that distributing pill out, but you still have to have one or two in each team. And Dossy Parish is the guy at Essendon to do that. He's clearly still the one that they want in there. When he did go back and play for Essendon last season for only the 3 games, averaged 88, but was their main contested ball winner. So yeah, Dossy Parish, if healthy, I think I'm on board. Fool me once, shame on, you know the quote, but I'm backing him in. Willem Dersma jumps in as my first rookie in the midfield. He's priced over 200k, which might scare some people off, but I've seen in the early goings in Team Picker, most people are just locking him in. The number 1 pick in the draft. West Coast will find a great role for him. He'll either be distributing off half-back or time through the midfield, even a half-forward. He can play in all sorts of roles. Wiry frame, but can score with the best of them in junior ranks. So keep an eye out on Dersma. And I think the big thing for him is just job security. He's going to play. If he's available every game, he'll play every game. So Willem Dersma for me is a lock, but not a Dossy's lock. We don't lock in rookies this early in the season. So keep an eye on preseason. Dyson Sharp is another one that is straight in from Essendon. Couple of Dons in there, but Dyson Sharp, SA boy, huge junior numbers. Check out the Rookie Bible. As I said, I'll link that in the description, but some absolutely monster junior numbers. If he ends up doing what he's done at junior level in the AFL, then the Dons will have an absolute beast on their hands. Another player that is, again, I said I'm not going to lock any of these rookies as a Dossy's official lock, but Jagger Smith, he's as close as they come. Coming back after an ACL injury, unfortunately ruined his rookie campaign. Sophomore Jagger Smith is going to be hopefully straight into Carlton's team. He was going to get a debut in year 1 had he not done the ACL, so let's lock him in. The bench is completely subject to change, but let's just roll with a few favourites at the moment. Will Brodie, now if he's going to actually play, he's going to be on field. I just want to respect him, put him on the bench for now because I think he'll play. If he does play, with that Port early schedule as well, we can just put him on field and lock him away. So I'd probably just rotate one of those other rookies I've got onto the bench, maybe play some loophole action, but Will Brodie would be absolutely on field for me if he's playing. Patrick Rechko, let's go him from Richmond, coming across from Geelong. Again, a bit of a speculative pick at this time of year, and I'll admit I tried to sort of scrape the barrel on the rookie side. Didn't want to put too much money on the bench in this team so I could use it all on the field. But Rechko is in at the moment. From all reports, just a running machine and could slot into maybe a wing role straight away at the Tigs. Hopefully, I'm thinking they've got him for a reason. They've got a role in mind. So hoping that he can sort of be a really nice cash cow for us. And I've got a mature ager in Billy Cootie from SA as well, the Redlegs Norwood over here, 113.5k mature age recruit, 23 years old, averaged 122 in the sample and 111 SuperCoach points the year before that. So 23-year-old coming in, could he be the Riley Bice of 2026? That is what they're saying. That is what Dan Batten and the Phantom are saying in the Rookie Bible, so go check that out. Now let's get into the rucks. I've got my next lock here, and this could be somewhat controversial given the price, but Tristan Sherry is a Dossy lock. 687k. perma captain, perma vice captain, goes 180, can go just massive scores. I think he's the SuperCoach guy that Max Gawn has had that mantle for so long, as just a set and forget ruck. I think Tristan Sherry is that guy from now and going forward. Average basically the same as Max Gawn last year. Don't see it slowing down. Don't think the ruck rule will affect him too much. He can run and jump. He can bash and crash. He can do it all. Tristan Sherry, tackles, just contested machine. I want him as a vice captain and captain alongside Zach Butters in the early going. So he's in for me. I think their draw's not too bad as well. Doesn't have an early buy, so lock him in. Luke Jackson is my other one. And this is a bit of a point of difference. I don't think many people will pick Luke Jackson, and I maybe shouldn't either, but he's in for now. Fremantle love to run 2 rucks. A lot of his big scores last year were with Sean Darcy. Without Sean Darcy, I should say. They've brought in Mason Cox, so does that mean when Sean Darcy is inevitably injured for a few games, they're just going to play Mason Cox, so Luke Jackson never gets to solo ruck? It's all possibilities, but I think Luke Jackson has the potential to be the best player in the AFL, not just SuperCoach. So I also think the new ruck rule, if anybody's tailor-made to dominate based on that from the midfield, it is Luke Jackson. He's become this hybrid ruck forward mid. I'm enamored by Luke Jackson. I think he can be one of these rucks. We see rucks, our top 3 rucks here, 125 Grundy, 127 Sherry, and 127 Gawn. I think he can reach those heights. So I actually don't think he's at his max price. Just all depends on that ruck share and what happens there. Liam Reedy is my easy bench option at the moment if he plays for Carlton. It's a simple one. He's got forward status as well, which is awesome to be able to swing that around. Another Dossy lock here in the forward line. Harry Sheezel. It's just an easy pick. He's a guy that can rack up. He had 55, 56 disposals last year, and he's listed as a forward. He can play in any position. He can rack up in any position. 107 is probably underpriced for where Sheezel can go in his future. So look, you don't need to say anymore. He'll be one of the most highly earned players in SuperCoach 2026, and we can lock him straight away. Another player on an earlier buy I've got here is Christian Petrarca at the moment. So I've come around to bring him into my squad. I mentioned the awesome sort of early draw for Gold Coast. Again, I can just look at how he goes in opening round and decide if I want to keep him in the team once I've seen his score for opening round, which don't count for SuperCoach. We can judge, see what his break-even is going to be, how he's going to look like, how he looks like in the Suns as well, what his role is. Is he a forward? Is he a midfielder? If he's a forward, I don't really want a piece of it. If he's in the midfield with Noah Anderson, Matt Rao, yes, please. Let's get on board. Could go back to 100 plus, 105, 110, who knows with Petrarca. And with the early schedule as well, he could really get us off to a hot start despite the buy round mixed in there as well. The next one, though, is just an absolute lock. And if anyone watched the Phantoms Lair last season, he became known as Sam Panders because he was in the frying pan, a segment on our show, many times. Because I actually picked him up last season as a defender, Sam Flanders, but he's now listed as a pure forward. He had he averaged 119 the year before last, and he's down average of 72, which is a $396,000 price tag, and he's listed as a pure forward. So he's come over to the Saints. He's already said he's wanting to play midfield. He left Gold Coast because he wanted to play midfield, and there was just no room in the midfield for him. Sam Flanders is the Bailey Smith of 2026. Just lock it in. 119 average the year before. He could get back to at least 110, at least 100. I won't go too big, but at least 100 as a midfielder, and I'm just huge on Sammy Flanders. Love the way he goes about it. Think he'll be absolutely amazing this season. Now, you might think, where's all the cash to go from here? Well, that's where we go a little bit cheap in the forward line. Not highly enamored with any other top-end picks. Think Isaac Rankin could make his way in there, but he's obviously suspended to start the season, so can't pick him early. But if he's in the midfield again, I'd certainly be picking him at some point. Nick Martin's out for the season, so our top 3 there, the only one we can really pick at round 1 is Harry Sheezel. Sam Dossy is another one that sort of tempts me as well, but at the moment, we're going sort of a more top-end 3 and then going the rookies in the forward line. And I think there are some really nice rookies to choose from. A guy that I think maybe he's going a little bit under the radar. I wonder what his ownership's like at the moment. But Leo Lombard for Gold Coast, I think he'll get some opportunities now with players leaving the club. You know, Swallows out of the picture. Fiorini's gone. There's some other departures. I know some have come in, such as, you know, Petrarca we just mentioned, and these new amazing rookies like your Eulens and your Pattersons, but Leo Lombard's one left over from last year, didn't get to play much due to an injury, did his shoulder quite early. He was already playing quite early in the season, had a heap of sub-affected games from memory as well, but averaged 104 in the VFL. And at 119k, he's more of that. He was playing a bit of midfield in the VFL, so I think if they do deploy him, he might get a bit of that wing, a bit of the wing left behind by Fiorini, maybe a bit of inside time, you know, chopping out for some of these guys. Or even a pressure forward. So I think there's a role for him this season. Let's just wait and see. I've already seen Gold Coast clipping up some highlights of him going around tackling people. So keep an eye out on him. Dev Rob is the other one. Devon Robertson, West Coast Eagles, 119k. Straight in. Surely plays for West Coast. Comes across after they've tried to get him for 3 years. He's going to play midfield for West Coast, I would imagine. And straight up, just bargain at 119k, going to play midfield, and he's listed as a forward. A couple of other guys here. Sid Draper on the bench at the moment. Do we see a Dan Curtin style second-year breakout for Sid Draper? Had a lot of trouble last season cracking into the squad. Still averaged pretty well in the sample, and he's averaged basically a ton in the sample for 2 years now. I think this year could be the year we see a bit more Sid at AFL level. And they handled Dan Curtin really well, despite criticism early days of not playing him enough at AFL level. Maybe it's the same deal with Sid Draper. Give him a year, get accustomed. The only issue is he's already had an interrupted preseason so far. So hopefully he's going to be okay to start the season. And Finlay McRae rounds out the other forward bench spot. I don't know what West Coast I'm a West Coast fan, but I wonder what other West Coast fans think where Finn fits into the squad, if he does fit into the squad. I think he does. I think these new recruits all fit into the squad, basically. So I think he won't have any trouble finding a spot, whether it's half forward, bit of mid, wing, wherever they find him a spot. I think he'll be playing. So he's also listed as a forward, which is very juicy, given he is coming across wanting to play a forward mid role as well. So love that for him. Flex position, 427k left in the bank for the flex position, and you know it couldn't be any other player than Harley Reid. Priced at 70 last season, had a slow start, was playing in defense for a little bit, taking random kick-ins here and there, and eventually immediately was like, this is not where we need to play Harley Reid. We need to get him back in the midfield, needed to get his fitness up, managed to do that, and came home relatively well, but still nothing to write home about. Dropped, I think, was it 1 ton for the season? There wasn't much in the way of highlights, but there was in the way of upside for 2026. Third-year breakout is on the cards. I said last week it was a guaranteed third-year breakout for Harley Reid. Priced at 70, averaged 80 in his rookie season, so look for him to go 95 or 100. That might be bold, but keep an eye out. It's a bold call. It's time for bold calls, January 1st. That is the squad. If you do want to check it out, again, Code Sports YouTube channel. Let's put the C on Butters and the VC on Tristan Sherry just to make it nice and wrap it up there. Let's quickly touch on the guys that were missing, though, before I wrap this up. The Bont. It's the early buy round. He's got a buy round in round 3 and a couple of tough matchups before then. Nick Dacos, a round 2 buy. So you get 1 game, then he's on the buy. I just don't think I can do that. I love Nick Dacos. Just don't think I can do that to my team. at this stage. Same with Sam Walsh, because if Sam Walsh ends up being a must-have and his first, opening round he dominates, then round 1 he has an amazing game, his price won't change until after his bye. So Carlton have the round 2 bye, he'll play the opening round, he'll play 1 game that counts for SuperCoach, then he'll have a bye. Then if one of these other failed picks, if Jack Steele doesn't fire, whatever, I can just get him anyway. If Zach Butters is underperforming before his price change, I can try and jump on a Sam Walsh before coming out of that sort of round 2 bye. So I think those guys I'm happy to avoid in my starting squad at the moment. Errol Goulden is one that I'm really hot on, but he has the round 3 bye, and also Sydney's schedule I've already had a little look. Doesn't look great. Max Gawn and Grundy, neither of them are in the squad at the moment. Melbourne don't have an early bye, so I could look at Max Gawn significantly, but Brodie Grundy does have an early bye, so I don't think I'll be going there. I think I'd rather, there's a bunch of other ruck options for us. Up forward, Sam Draper. I think we can just wait till after his bye as well if we need him, and he's only had 1 year averaging above the 70 odd mark. So I think Brisbane will unlock his potential quite a bit, but I really do want to see him first. I don't think I'm happy starting Sam Draper at this point. So I'm happy to wait till Brisbane after their round 2 bye. And then Adam Treloar is probably the only other one that I can think of that's, lots of people are looking at. We can just wait as well. And he's a guy that I can swap with a Christian Petrarca, say, if one fires and one doesn't in opening round, and if Adam Treloar is in the team. I think if Adam Treloar is in the best team, best 23, I'm picking him. Put it that way. His pedigree for scoring is unbelievable, and he's listed as a forward, so he is one that could definitely come into the squad. Anyway, that is the squad. That is the first team reveal of 2026. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think, though. Love it, hate it. Any major picks I've left out, anyone you're on board with, against, let us know in the comments. And also those New Year's resolutions, like we said, your SuperCoach New Year's resolution, would love to hear it. Remember to subscribe, Code Sports YouTube channel for more SuperCoach content, and follow wherever you listen to your podcast. See you again soon.